Hey everybody, I have my good friend here, Darren Rickwood with First Home Mortgage, and I want to talk with Darren today about something we are constantly asked this question, and that is, when is the housing market going to crash? And there's a lot of people talk online and between YouTube and Reddit and news sources and things of that nature about our housing market crashing after the 2020 COVID housing boom, okay? And they compare it a lot to the 2005 housing boom, and they're waiting for that 2008 housing crash. But statistically, that is the largest defect on the housing market that we've ever had in history. Out of the 8 past major recessions, only 2 of them had a negative impact on home values, where the rest of them, home values went up, okay? And the 2 that went down was 2008, 2009 timeframe, and it went down to 15%. The other one was in the 80s and it only went down 2%, okay? But there's a big difference between home loans that were done in 2005 timeframe to what we were seeing in 2020, 2021, and 2022, and really before that, okay? From basically, 2012, 2011, to today's lending standards. And so Darren, tell us, the difference really so everybody has a better understanding about it.
So back in 2008, 2009, there really wasn't a lot of checks and balances in place. The banking world was doing loans, and really I was just kind of starting just before that. But the banking system was doing loans without a lot of fail-safes and checks and balances.
Sure.
So they were doing no-doc loans, they were doing stated loans. There was a lot of ARMs with teaser rates, and there was banks out there that were doing 1-year ARMs, and they were adjusting, and people had no clue what was going on. Sure. There was no preset disclosures like we have today, where we really have to go over and make sure the borrower is aware what the payment's going to adjust to, what the timeline is, everything else. There was no checks and balances in place for appraisals. So values were going up exponentially on houses based on whatever they needed.
Sure.
So people were doing cash out refinances, and there was no red flags. Our systems have changed today. Dodd-Frank legislation, everything else came out. Our paperwork has changed. Of course, now it's more expensive to do a loan because of all this. But the checks and balances are in place to prevent something like that, a major catastrophe, from happening again. So anytime you have values going up 10, 15%, 20%, and there is not safeguards and things in place to make sure it's legitimate, of course it's going to fail.
Sure.
So what we did, we got to a point where people started losing jobs. ARMs started being called in. They couldn't refinance because values started to drop, or programs disappeared, like no doc, stated, things like that were non-existent anymore. They became illegal as a qualified mortgage, so banks weren't offering them. So when that happened, people couldn't refinance, they couldn't pay their bills, so of course the banks started foreclosing on properties. Well, that led to a giant decline in values because the banks were selling off these properties over time for much less than what they paid because they were underwater. So valuations now are scrutinized by a computer system. They're all put in, and it's looked at and go, where there's red flags, oh, that's too high, that's, we have to do either a second appraisal, field review, desk review, that sort of thing. Underwriters are scrutinizing appraisals anymore. So the comps that are being used, everything else. So a lot of things are in place now that were not back in 2008, 2009 to prevent the system from crashing. Now, we just saw a big boom and a big increase in values. That was not created by the market, or the system. That was created by supply and demand. People were actually selling their houses for more than they were worth, and buyers were willing to pay cash above and beyond the sales price. When that happens, that becomes your new value. It's what someone's willing to pay. So for an appraised value, even though it's contract of 300, if someone pays 350, it's still appraised at 300. They're paying the 50 grand more. That becomes a new value moving forward, sets a new comp. That's not going to crash. That is your value. Now, we may see things flatten out, maybe 1 or 2% decrease in some areas, but it's going to be very localized.
Sure.
So the things that led up to our market in 2008, 2009, in my opinion, are not going to happen anymore.
Sure.
There's way too many things in place now to prevent that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Darren. I think that's one of the big pieces that nobody talks about in comparison with the housing market change and shift is that, you know, my generation especially, we're accustomed to those prices and what had happened. We seen it to our family, we saw it to friends, you know, of 2008, and the housing market crash and lose that value. And, you know, just like buying homes in the stock market, you're looking for those dips. And, you know, dips come. We probably will see some stuff come through here. We'll see some people who have been in forbearance on their loans from COVID, and those people couldn't be evicted. And so we'll start to see some of those foreclosures go into the market. But that's still going to be a small margin, I think, of our market situation here. We had an office meeting here today, and they talked about how there is, in just the state of Maryland, the consumer demand index, Freddie Mae is expecting a shortfall of homes in Maryland of 800,000 homes. Okay, that is new households starting in Maryland, and there's a shortage of 800,000 homes. Okay, so talk about a demand.
So it's 800,000 people that are sitting on the sideline that can't buy.
100%, which is then going to cause home values to stay consistent or to go up more. Okay, no matter what's going on, all right, within our economy.
Economics at that point.
It is simple economics at that point. So, Darren, I appreciate coming in, talking about this here today. I love the jacket, very Southern Maryland. I love the style. So thank you, Darren.
You bet.
And again, if you guys have any questions, you want to know what is really happening with our economy, what's happening down here in Southern Maryland, you want to know what's really happening with the mortgage industry, feel free to reach out with Darren at First Home Mortgage or myself, Jeffrey.lewis of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. We're here to help. We're here to be a resource for our community, and we want to help everybody.
Absolutely.
So don't hesitate to reach out to us today, and we'll talk to all of you soon.
Thanks.